Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first reading of the Connecticut Literary Anthology, the book so many of you have not received yet. I do apologize. Thank you for joining us. This is really exciting. I'm Joe Thimbarello. I'm the editor of the book, and I'm also the director of the Connecticut Literary Festival and a professor at Central Connecticut State University. This book started in June of 2019 with an email, as most things do these days. This is pre-pandemic. We received an email from Judy McBride from the Connecticut Foundation for Public Giving, and it had the most wonderful offer. We'll give you money to publish a book, and that doesn't happen very much in the literary arts, and I was really excited. It was enabled the university, actually. This is our first book. It's published by the English department at Central. We could mentor some young student editors, which is always important, and of course build more community with you Connecticut writers. So I want to thank everyone who submitted to the book. We had over 300 submissions, and then the writers in the book. It was so fun just to meet a few of you quickly here in our little audio test, and we know for next week we need more time for that. But it's truly a joy to see you and to hear your work tonight. Is really a gift to us, so thank you so much. A few people I want to thank, primarily the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and we had an anonymous donor who gave us the money. So thank you to our anonymous sugar daddy. I appreciate that. Also, the people in the English department, my colleagues at Central, I want to thank them, particularly our chair, Professor Melissa Mentzer, and the Dean of the Liberal Arts and Sciences, Robert Wolf, and the people at the CCSU Foundation who handle our dough. They've all been very terrific and supportive of the project. So tonight we're going to hear 14 writers from the book. And then next week, of course, is part 2 with the rest of them. It's interesting, the order and the who read, it was just based on their availability. We're going to hear about 33, I think, of everyone in the next 2 Thursdays. It so happens that our first reader tonight, Barb Jennings, is the first piece in the book. And if you tune in next week, I believe it's Nancy is the last piece in the book. So that just kind of worked out, and everyone else is kind of in between. I did shorten the bios a little for the interest of time, so we'll have those happening. We've been through all of that, but I think we're going to be great. We've never done this. We've been doing Lit Talks now since last June, and this is our most ambitious, and I think it's going to be the most fun. It's a real celebration of the hard work you've put in and our staff, and we'll get their names later. We do have the chat going, so and that's run by our production supervisor, Christiana Torres, who is also the poetry editor for the book. So just be nice in there. If you're naughty, Christiana will kick you out. She does it all the time to me. So thanks again for joining us, and let's get started. I'm so excited. We're going to start with a poem. We had so much wonderful poetry submitted to the book. Of the 3 genres, I'd say almost 3 to 1 was poetry. So there were some tough choices. So if you're in the book, really kudos to you. Our first poet, recently named the inaugural Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut, is B. Fulton Jennings. Poems have appeared and will appear in Tupelo Quarterly 20, the Connecticut River Journal, and the Connecticut Poetry Anthology 2020, and other publications. Her piece in our book is titled Pandemic, a Love Poem in 4 Parts. Please welcome Barb.
Hi, everyone. Am I muted? No, I guess I'm good. I wanted to say thanks to Jotham and the entire editorial team. It's really such an honor, not only to be in the anthology, but also to be here this evening. And thank you, everyone, for coming. This poem was written very early in the pandemic, when things seemed so rare and so vibrant. And I hope we can hold on to that feeling when we see our day-to-day world. And as Jotham mentioned, it's called Pandemic, a Love Poem in 4 Parts. 1, I wake early, draw back night-drenched drapes so that when you rise, only brightness greets you. I add milk and sugar to your cup. You slice me a serving of coffee cake, twice as large as yesterday's. We close cupboard doors left ajar without complaint. Extinguished lights left blazing in empty rooms. Our disquiet makes us indulgent, reminds us that there may not always be love to leave half-eaten. 2, a riot of yellow trumpet salutes are passing as we amble to the lake. You nod at them and say, "Oh, look, The forsythias are in bloom. A gentle mondegreen, barely worth correcting, except I always do. I've set you straight a score of years, but today there are greater urgencies. The startled chip of a sanguine cardinal that swoops across our path. A blue sky veined with brown branches as we look to an expectant heaven. The way our footsteps coincide in silence, kiss the earth as if in a single tread. The amazement that we've walked this far on a road that's never been so strewn with so much wonderment, doused in so much light. 3. Spring repeats herself like a babbling old fool, asking again if lunch is ready. She mutters in crocuses, daffodils, shadblow, the same beautifully bowed gifts she has borne time and again, mud and rain, an endless reprise. How is it that we adore her now more than ever, like an elder rooted in a shabby armchair, whose head we cannot help but kiss with each passing, although we endure their endless muling, although we know that these blossoms too will fade. 4.
Outstanding.
My mother's last words were, I want to walk in the rain and feel the rain on my face, although she abhorred how her bones ached, how her hair frizzed with the falling barometer. Loss sharpens our senses, makes us hungry for foods we did not know we favored. Our appetites now betray how little we loved what we loved before. Thank you.
That's terrific. You mentioned, Barb, that you wrote it at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
I know we got it. I think we got it late in our submission, and it's one of the few that actually, the submission guideline, we didn't really know what we were handling back in the spring. It's one of the few that focused on this. When did you know you wanted to write about this emerging pandemic in our country?
I think when I became so aware of how everything felt so different from the way it had just days before we went into lockdown, and when we worried about all our loved ones, their health and their well-being. So it just, especially older folks like me, I think that's what really inspired me to sit down and write down what I was feeling at the time.
Well, I know it caught our attention because it was unique in that regard, and we didn't know what we were dealing with, and it was so it's lovely to thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we are going to keep with the poetry because we have a lot of poetry, and we are going to bring up in a minute Benjamin S. Grossberg. So I know Ben is out there, and Christiana will get him. Benjamin S. Grossberg's books include Space Traveler and Sweet Core Orchard. He has a new collection called My Husband Would, and it was published by the University of Tampa Press this fall. And there he is. And tonight, Ben's going to read his poem, Sunflower Maze, from the anthology. Ben, welcome to the screen, and eager to hear your work. Thank you for being here.
Jotham, thank you, and thanks to the entire English department for all their work putting this together. Sunflower Maze is a ghazal, or at least a loose ghazal. That's an Arabic form. So when I read, you'll hear a word repeated a lot, and in the final couplet, it's a signature couplet. So the form asks you to use your own name in that couplet. So you'll hear that I do. Sunflower Maze. From the viewing stand, we see ways out as giggly families bundle through sunflowers. Fieldside, we were suddenly in love with sunflowers. In the garden, rising from vines of hardshell squash like flaming torches, 7 sunflowers. I drive down to visit her and her damaged heart. Rigid beside me, bloom on the headrest, a sunflower. I say they speak to me, but the intimacy is between sun and sunflower. Faces beam, sun beams. Beams also the yellow petaled bloom of a sunflower. Seed hive, stasis chamber for hundreds in interstellar sleep. What lodges in the disk of a sunflower? Early spring, I'll crouch to rip out the kettlebell dense roots of each sunflower. Oh, brash joining, the groom's lapels match golden cummerbunds with sunflowers. Curves, dull and hard like industrially molded plastic, the back of each sunflower. Hone neglect. Early watering breeds shallow roots, and timber, there goes your sunflower. I thought maybe, briefly, when he insisted that we pull over to gaze at the field of sunflowers. My boxes of photographs, diaries, birthday cards, as practical as a harvest of sunflowers. He did it to amuse me. The bud vase, the jamming, the thick stalk of the sunflower. Wanting you back, or a version that loved me, I imagine leaving like a pike across your door, a sunflower. We take one in hand and spin, accelerating with twirling ballast, the bloom of each sunflower. Petal fall, birds launch at the disc, beaks puncturing, hollowing each striated seed inside the sunflower. Day one, balance a seed on your fingertip. Day 100, stand in the shade of your sunflower. Late at night, a neighbor sneaked into this garden with a coping saw, canvas gloves, and a lust for sunflower. Ben, son. Benjamin, son of the right hand. Their gay gardener, I answer also to sunflower.
Bravo, bravo, thank you. Ben, what's the genesis of this poem, and how long has it you've been working on?
A long time, but actually, it's funny you ask. The genesis from the viewing stand we see ways out. I went on a date, a disaster of a date, with the exception of this moment when me and this gentleman pulled over at a sunflower maze, and I wrote a couplet about the date. And then it occurred to me that sunflowers were much more interesting than this gentleman alone or this gentleman and I together. You know what I mean? Like how it expended in a couplet.
Uh-huh. Well, it's terrific. It's terrific. And thanks for having it in our book. I appreciate it. And best of luck with your work.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be part of the book.
Yeah, we're gonna have a real party one of these days. I promise. And you know, Ben's poem reminds me too that we're working with some of the faculty at Central, and we're going to be developing a reader's guide for a study guide for students, and we're going to be sending copies to high school students in the January when the study guide's done. Now, we didn't pick the faculty kind of self-selected from the anthology, so I think we've done about a dozen poems, essays, and stories. And I know someone did select yours, Ben. That's what's making me think about it. And we have 4 questions, and then we have a writing prompt. And I'll let you all know about that. So if you do teach and you want to adopt the book, it's a possibility. But the guide's going to be nice. It'll be online. And it'll be free. So another thing we've been able to do.
Pencil is a great form for students too, right? With once they get into the play, the repetition, it's just fun.
Yeah, I think that's the writing prompt. I got to write one.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
All right, our next poet is also a playwright. Susan Cinnamon is a frequent contributor to ABC's The Goldbergs. Her plays have been seen off-Broadway and at Ensemble Studio Theater, Naked Angels, and Circle Repertory Company. Tonight she's reading her poem, A Wedding, Welcome, Susan. So nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be among these wonderful writers. Really. This is a poem called A Wedding. I saw pictures of my children at their father's wedding day, and I wasn't even dead. It broke my heart to watch them smiling, holding on to the arm of the lovely bride by her side, their pale skin blending in with her white gown and flowers all around. Their father looking happier than life, than sun, than any minute that he met me. It was easy for him to forget me. What little girl should have to look at her father and his beautiful bride and wonder how their mother, now graying and thick in the middle, must have looked once by his side? My time didn't have to pass like that. I pushed it away like a dish I couldn't eat. It made my stomach weak. I couldn't do it. I could pursue it, but when it came down to it, I couldn't do it. Cherub sweet, they gave it their all, those girls. Smiles were real. Thank yous and pleases and pearls, trying hard to feel what he wanted them to feel. It became as real as roses and ribbons that flew through their air. Light and pretty and better promises made. That day, my daughters were in the vibrant sun, in the garden, in their stepmother's changing room, in the tree's shade. Though I wasn't there, so much of that wedding day I made. Thank
Terrific.
you.
Susan. Hey,
Thank
Susan,
you.
I noticed in your bio, and then you seem to write in a number of forms, and spend a lot of time doing plays. How do you know which one you want to communicate to when you want to write?
I really am a playwright. I mean, that's what I do, and some television writing. Those are things. Those are the genres I feel comfortable in. I've really never written a poem, but I just came over me, and I had these, memories and feelings, and it just seemed like the right form for those particular ones. So I tried it. Yeah.
It worked. So you don't write a lot of poetry, so we're lucky we got this one.
Oh,
So.
thank you so much. No, this is my first poem that I've ever written.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
We beat out a lot of
I hope everybody liked it. So
keep it up. Thank you.
I'm honored. I'm so honored. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Really
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, everybody. All
right. Well, besides poetry, we do have some fiction and nonfiction. We're going to hear from an essay now. Of course, the essays except for maybe one or two tonight, you're going to hear excerpts. So it's a good tease when the book does arrive that you can finish them at home. So we're going to hear some excerpts from some of the longer pieces. And the first one tonight, an essay I admire, is by Marina Tanone, is a writer based in Connecticut. Their work primarily focuses on language, identity, and voice. They create the things they wish they could have held when they were growing up. Tonight, they'll read from her essay, Beyond the Sea. Marina, welcome. Nice to have you here tonight. You're going to read from the beginning, is that correct?
Yes, the very beginning.
All right, so that is their tease. When she stops, you can just continue reading at home. So thank you, and the floor is yours.
All right, so thank you for the introduction. Just before I start, shout out to West Hartford, Connecticut, where I grew up, and to New Haven, Connecticut, where I call home. So once again, this is the very beginning of the essay in the anthology. It's called Beyond the Sea, and I hope you like it. O sangue frio de uma mãe. That's how Grandpa tells the story. Drew Louise was a kid, and to prove to Grandpa he wasn't scared of heights, he climbed out onto the balcony and tried to Homem-Aranha himself from one ledge to the other. I imagine my uncle, maybe 8 or 10 years old, grasping the outside railing of the balcony, his back to the open air, planning the best way to grasp the wall with only his hands and his feet. The Kita family lived in an apartment over 10 floors up. What it took, according to Grandpa, for a mother to not scream out and to instead firmly grasp her child from behind the railing and pull him back to safety was the cold blood of a mother. I guess in English, the expression would be nerves of steel, but I prefer the Portuguese. You have to be cool-headed to save your child. The writer Claudia Day argues that mothers are the makers of death. The creation of life is also the creation of another death. I think you need something cold within you to truly realize it. You have to know death to preserve and love life. Nerves of steel sounds like a mechanical replacement. Sangue frio makes the change total and permanent in your body. Besides, I like the way Grandpa tells the story so gravely. O sangue frio de uma mãe. Cold blood, something only mothers can have. My mother, despite looking so much like Grandma, takes more after Grandpa in the rhythm of her voice, her gestures, her cautioning tone. I remember hearing Grandpa's seriousness in my mother when I was little at home in Connecticut. Nina. Mom always called me Nina. Do you know what to do if you're caught in a riptide? You swim diagonally against it. You keep swimming, even if you're tired. You have to keep swimming against the riptide until you reach the end. That's why you swim diagonally. At some point, you have to find the end, and then you're free. My mother had been caught in riptides when she was a kid growing up in Rio. She wanted to make sure I knew how to save myself. Every time I entered the ocean, I would tread the water cautiously, wondering if something would ever pull me back or into it. Maybe next time it would, and Mom's words would come true. She named me Marina of the sea because of her love of the ocean. Maybe one day, I thought, I would really feel like I was part of the sea. I would feel my mother's ocean, the one she loved to reminisce about, the one with riptides. Swimming in the ocean was the closest I ever experienced to flying, or at least as a kid, I had imagined that the buoyancy of the water would feel like the lift of an open sky. I had been on airplanes since I was 3, flying from the States to family in Brazil. I've always known that the sky looked different from the ocean I swam in. But between the sky and the sea, I connected them. There's the famous bossa nova song, Aquarela, that Mom taught me. From the moment I heard the lyrics, Tanto céu e mar, beijo azul, I knew this blue kiss was something real. I searched to her eyes in line for the meeting of those two expanses of blue, and I smiled. I wanted to be like my mom. I wanted to love the ocean as much as she did. I already looked remarkably like her. My own brother mistook an old childhood picture of my mom with one of me. So I wanted to prove I was like her. She grew up a tomboy, so I wanted to be less girly. She could notice intricate patterns and fold origami with precise, sharp folds. I refolded and refolded the paper until it went soft in my hands. Still, I had kept trying. I only gave up trying to be her when I realized I loved words more than she ever did. I gave up when I realized my childhood would never be hers. I knew when on the flight back from Brazil, I would peer out the airplane window at the isolated suburbs below and search for the deciduous New England forest that I called home. My eyes strained past the horizon line, hoping for a glimpse. I would press my palm against the cold glass and watch the film of water spread around the heat of my hand, and I would think, it's just like home. Just like the winter when I would look out the window on a snowy day.
Outstanding. The next paragraph, it begins, my birthday is in December. When is your birthday?
December 30th, the New Year's Eve.
All right, well, not yet. We can't sing. I was hoping we get to sing.
No, not yet.
Now, you still have family in Brazil?
Yes, they're all there.
They're all there. And you're going to school in New Haven?
I actually recently graduated from Yale, so I'm in the postgraduate glow.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations. And it's, everyone, it's a terrific essay. So when you get the book, you should finish this essay for sure.
Please do. Get the book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really great essays and stories in the book. I just can't say enough about them. I was lucky enough to work with a couple of the essayists, and it was a lot of fun to edit. We did have a team of editors, and one of them who's helping us this fall too, Connor, will be up. He's going to MC the second half, and he was going to talk a little about it and name off all the great editors. Some are with us tonight. We had a kind of a series of editors. We got the submissions. Bailey was our submission manager, and then we had 3 genre editors that some of you are familiar with. And then we also had readers. We had a series of student readers, and then we had some professionals in the state who also kind of looked over our shoulders. So we had a lot of fail-safes. We also did a blind read, which means, of course, the editors didn't know, there was no names attached to the story. So only Bailey, I think, knew in the beginning who's who, and he did our kind of grid on our Excel spreadsheet. So it was a blind read of the work. And of course, we had to go through the pandemic, as many of you have. I think we had 2 meetings at Central. We have a nice office there that they provide us, and then we had to get out immediately. So everything was digital after that, of course, and we kind of took a little hiatus and then really hit it hard. So all the students, they worked throughout the summer on the editing of the book. Emmy Gonzalez is next. We have another poem. Emmy Gonzalez is a PhD student at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville in literature, criticism, and textual studies. That sounds very intense, Emmy. Her poetry has been published in the Journal of the Yale Medical Group and Art Place. And she is coming up, and she will read from her poem, Lines Composed Many Miles from Tucson. I love that title. When Emmy comes up here in a second. The book, we published some of the books. It's interesting. People have said they've got them ordered faster than I got them. It's interesting. We used a print on demand through Amazon, which was the quality is excellent. But for some reason, you could order a copy immediately. And when I ordered the 200-300 I ordered, they took 4 weeks. It was bizarre. So it was kind of funny. And then here's a funny story. When you get things from Amazon, they show up somewhat packed. The books just appeared in boxes. I think there was 5 shipments. One had like 4 in them. It's like some guy, at the end of the line just chucked them in a box and taped it and sent them off to me. No packing slip. It was really bizarre. Very un-Amazon-like. So Emmy is coming up. If you're out there, Emmy, you should hit your button and you can join us on the virtual stage. We use Crowdcast, this program. We've been using it for a couple months. It's a little fancier than Zoom, I think. Again, you can type a question if you want for any of the writers as we go. Hi, Emmy.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you. I just gave your bio, and you can read anytime you like.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay. So my poem is called Lines Composed Many Miles from Tucson. Just beyond the quarry wall, resembling Stonehenge, a molten lava sky is effortless showcased before you. Like burning embers, the remains of a lofty fire, a seance for the end of a decade. You tell me that you never understood God's artistry until you witnessed your first Catalina sky. Combustible, claret-infused mountains, seeping sanguine, smoldering strokes. This awe-inspiring backdrop, another nightly masterpiece, or an example of the romantic sublimity. Here across the street from the Connecticut River, I sit at my white bistro patio set, subtly resting, and imagine you, so small and insignificant, stained with the sun's dusky afterglow, quietly sitting yours.
Thank you, Emmy. Thank you very much. Thank you for being in the book. And the video is a little shaky, so we're gonna go on. But I appreciate it, Emmy. Thank you very much. And the book is in the mail, I promise. We had some fiction. We haven't heard any fiction yet, and we're gonna hear a bit of some fiction now. And this is by Beth Gibbs. I was lucky enough to edit with Beth over the summer. So I think if Beth can come up, I know we were getting up early. This is going to be without a sound check. This is pretty exciting. After years of working in other media and higher education and nonprofits, Beth Gibbs is free tired, she says. I actually had to ask her, I said, what is free tired? She said, I made it up. She's free tired. And pursuing passions like writing. Her next book, Enlighten Up, The 5 Layers of Self-Awareness, was released in October. And tonight she's going to read an excerpt from her story, 1-800-555-MARY. So Beth, come on up to the virtual stage, hit that little button, and we will get it going. I'm texting my friend Christiana here. Someone asked me the other day, are we going to do another book? That is a great question. I hope so. We'll find out after the first of the year if we can keep it going or do it every other year. I have been in touch with our good friends at Real Artways, who's one of the sponsors of our series, along with CT Humanities. I want to thank CT Humanities. They provided a grant for our Lit Talks. And so we've picked a date for the second annual now, after a year off of the Connecticut Literary Festival. You're the first people to hear it. It is going to be October 23rd. That's a Saturday. So hopefully we are all vaccinated and we want to get out and enjoy. We had about 800 people at the first one, and we had big plans this year. So hopefully we get to execute them in October of 2021. All right, looking forward to being free tired. You betcha, Sarah. All right, Beth. All right. We're gonna go. We'll come back to you, Beth. So, Christiana, we're gonna get Catherine Speckman. We're gonna hear some more poetry. Catherine Speckman writes poetry and memoir from her home in Collinsville, Connecticut. Her work has appeared in Red Eft Review, Sky Island Journal, Muddy River Poetry Review, the Chestnut Review, and others. And as soon as Catherine comes up to the stage, she is going to read her poem, Fair Lawn, New Jersey, 1997, a year I remember. Thank you very much, Catherine.
Right. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for having me tonight. I just wanted to say I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be in the anthology and among such wonderful writers and poets. So thank you. I also want to make sure and say happy birthday to Emily Dickinson, 100 years ago. What a wonderful evening it is to be able to think about that as well. Fair Lawn, New Jersey, 1997. We are passing the bagel store, and you are strapped in your car seat. You can't be more than 3. Sun floods the green station wagon and wraps us like a golden fur this fall morning when everything is new and your hands are so small. Mama, look at the leaves and the trees and the blue sky, you chant, swinging your legs, red leotards bunched at the ankles. I drive behind sunglasses, and in the time it takes to dart my eyes to the rearview mirror and back, you ask, Mama, why do we die? More a song you make up than a question. The ache to cup my mouth upon yours, breath, apple juice sweet, to inoculate you, promise you everything. Believe I am magic, forged from cast iron, an eternal vessel, to hold you even when I am gone. But I know this moment is a thumbtack on our map, a stain I can't remove. And the illusion of protection is a charade, weightless, as it slips through my fingertips like your silky brown hair through a fine tooth comb of first death. Later, I will feed you lunch in the big yellow kitchen, your tiny fingers wrapped around a peanut butter sandwich.
Thank you, Catherine. That was great. That was great. Where does what's the genesis of this poem? When did it come into existence?
Well, I think it was written in 1997 in my heart. And I think I put it to paper maybe 5 years ago. And it's based, of course, on a moment in time, which is, I think, for me with poetry, how it works for me. The moment in time that happens and it just crawls in somewhere and comes back out later.
That was well said. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully Emily is smiling down on us tonight.
Oh, I'm sure she is in her wonderful room.
All right. Well, it was nice to meet you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so very much.
Yes, yes. Hopefully we'll see you maybe next week too for the other half. All right. We're going to have a treat tonight. We're going to hear an essay and by Dr. Avery Jenkins. And his is, I'd call it a flash, the folks at Brevity would have liked this too, but we got it first. And so we're going to hear the whole thing, actually. It's about 2.5 pages, so this is kind of fun. So Dr. Avery Jenkins is a former award-winning journalist and essayist who took a 25-year break from writing to become a chiropractor and acupuncturist. I read from his essay, Old Man Winter, which I believe includes, Avery, the only use of the word mall in the entire book. So welcome, Avery. We got that going for us. We're excited to hear this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored to be here with all this extraordinary literary talent, and I want to say thank you to all the organizers and people who put this anthology together. It's really incredible. This essay is Old Man Winter. I wrote it several years ago when I started getting the feeling that I really wanted to start exercising my writing muscles again. Leaning on the handle of the maul, I eyeball the woodpile sitting in front of me. We are both morosely sandwiched somewhere between fall's rowdy exuberance and spring's gentle murmurings. And I'm deliberating the wood's recent reappearance in my life. It had been hidden beneath a sizable pile of gray snow until a bout of warmer weather and rain had exposed the upper half. My winter remaining versus wood split calculations were leaving a gap that would only be closed by an abnormally early spring or the addition of more wood under the deck. Not choosing to gamble on the former, I had grabbed my maul and headed out back. Nobody likes a cold house in March. It was the quintessential late New England winter afternoon. Sullen clouds sit above the trees, outlining the dark, leafless tree limbs below them. I stand at the bottom of a gravel driveway, now half mud and half ice, bounded at the end by the dirty pile of snow with the last remaining row of unsplit woods poking out. It was cold, but it was a half-hearted cold. The biting, challenging cold of January was nowhere to be seen. A sweatshirt was a sufficient outerwear, though I decided against the kilt, primarily because of the depth of the snow I would have to clamber through to get to my wood. Winter's getting old, I think. I hefted the maul. So am I. I grabbed my 8-pound maul. It's not really my favorite maul. It's just a touch too heavy to wield for the longer splitting session that I had in mind for the afternoon, and it lacks the finesse of my 6-pound maul. But the handle of the 6-pounder has gotten a bit too dry this winter, and the head wobbles to the extent that I'm sure I'll leave it deeply buried in the maw of some slightly split piece of stringy wood, leaving me to flail about with wooden handle in frustration. I wish I had remembered to let the 6-pounder soak in a bath of neatsfoot oil overnight, but I hadn't. That would have firmed the loose head right up. The 8-pounder, though, is equipped with a fiberglass handle, which must be attached to the head with some sort of NASA space glue, because nothing I've ever done to it has even so much as loosened things. And I've managed to behead virtually every handled tool in existence, from a double-bit axe to a pip-matic. As it turned out, the bigger maul was the right call. At this point, I'm splitting wood a little bit past its prime. Not yet punky, but dried past the point where grain has much governance over the split. Frozen as it is when hit by a blast from Big Boy the Maul, the wood explodes into 2 or even 3 parts, making me feel like a cross between Paul Bunyan and the Terminator. Pieces fly several feet before landing, and I secretly hope someone is watching my display of lumber prowess. Nobody is, though, except for the puppy who comes out to visit and request a piece of freshly split wood to chew on. and the birds hiding in the bushes having their pre-supper conversations at an unusually exuberant volume. It is that chatter as much as anything else which tells me that, although spring may not yet be here, winter's strength is waning and his power fading. A month ago, the birds were largely silent, conserving every ounce of energy for the enormous task of keeping warm and staying alive. I'm not that anxious to see old winter go. Like most New Englanders, at least those of us outside the cities, winter brings his own pleasures along with his trials. Few memories are so strong for me as that of drinking my morning coffee next to a flaming wood stove, feeling its heat ripple past me into the rest of the house. Those silent moments are treasure. Without warning, the bird's chatter silences as a cold north wind kicks up. Winter's assertion that he's maybe not so old. Well, neither am I for that matter, and I ignored the sudden temperature drop, splitting a few more logs to reach my goal, which is to bring the woodpile even with the top of the snow, just to teach him who's boss. After splitting, I ferry a dozen or so wheelbarrows of split wood and stack it under the porch, where I hope it will dry out enough to be useful to me by the time I need it. I lean the wheelbarrow against the wood and then go back out and retrieve them all. Picking it up, I feel the muscles in my back. They aren't sore and they probably won't be, but they've been used just enough to feel wanted and loved. I look one last time to the low clouds of the stale winter sky. They still aren't talking. I turn to go inside. It's been a good afternoon.
All right, thank you, Avery. Terrific. Your friend, Old Man Winter, knocked the power out of my house last weekend, so I'm not such a fan.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He knocked the power out of my house last week, Old Man Winter. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, if we would have read this essay now, it wouldn't have been in the book. So anyway, I'm glad it came in the spring, brother. Thank you very much. I'm happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to invite up to the stage now here our co-MC for the night, Connor, who's been working on the book, and he's been emailing you constantly. So Connor, come on up. Hey, Connor, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You been enjoying the book?
Yeah, it's excellent. It's very good to see all these faces as opposed to reading their emails.
So I'm going to let Connor take over the second half, and he's going to talk a little about some of the people first who brought the book to you. It was a great team of folks. And it's interesting, when you work with young people, especially they're coming and going, and they really stayed with it through the end. So I was impressed by that. So Connor, take it away.
Yeah, we did have some wonderful people working on this, and they had to obviously overcome quite a few things as we all have this year. So as Jotham mentioned earlier, our submissions manager, we had Bailey Makowitz. We had our genre editors, Christiana Torres, who is behind the scenes right now, trying to make sure everything goes smoothly, as well as Catherine Fitzpatrick and Shayna Shattelrow. We also had some student readers in Janae Winter, Mark Stiraboga, Andrew Jacobs, Ariella Azuna Mendoza, Claire Hibbs Kassan, and Connor Breen. And then we also as well had three professional publishers and guest editors in Lucy Ferris, Inez Rivera, and Colin Holston, who will be taking my place as a guest MC next week. So thank you to all of them. Did incredible work.
All right, so Connor, and I will say to all the Beth Gibbs fans, I'm one of them. We're working on it. She is going to we're going to bring her into the end of this second half of readers. So we're working hard to get Beth up when we can. So Connor, you take it away. I think we have a poem, don't we, Connor, coming up?
Yes, we do. We have a poem from Claudia McGee, who she's dealt in and with words for decades as a software technical writer, newspaper columnist, freelance editor, ebook producer, poet, essayist, and fiction writer. Her chapbook of poems, Paperlight, was published by Finishing Line Press. And the poem she'll be reading for you this evening is Sawdust.
Hi, thanks for having me. I just wanted to say to Dr. Jenkins, I used to split wood. I'm not sure how heavy my maul was, but my poem is a summer poem. So let's do some juxtaposition here. I just also wanted to thank everyone involved in bringing this first annual Connecticut Literary Anthology into being. It's a wonderful idea, and I feel I'm in a community, even though I'm completely isolated at home. So thank you. So this is called Sawdust. Sunday, summer, second day of men's loud voices upstairs, with scraping, banging, wood thudding overhead. The metal saw blade screeches, shrieks, then silence. They say they are raising the roof, building a dormer. New bedrooms up there for her and one brother, a new bathroom, new office for Daddy. Sawdust settles everywhere, covers everything in sweet-smelling, slippery, sharp bits of wood. When they say it's time, that she's allowed to go look, she tries to scoot now. Daddy grabs her shoulders, grips hard, shakes her a little. Stay away from the edge. Okay, okay. And she squirms away, races to the stairs, flings open the door, clambers up, hands and feet, gets halfway, and one foot slips on sawdust. She falls and slides face down, bangs her chin on a step, then another, bumps cheek, belly, chest, thumps both knees hard before she can slow herself, before she can stop her tumble, keep herself from screaming. Daddy lifts her up, squats in front of her, opens her mouth, checks for chipped teeth, presses cheekbones, nose, sore chin, runs his hands down past collarbones. Brief pause on her flat chest, sighs, I hope nothing permanent. Time will tell. She looks at him, her sobs stop in one breath. Nothing broken, he says, but she feels doomed somehow. Damaged, even though she hurts only a little. He gives her a slight push. Go on, but go slower this time. She holds the handrail and stands at the top, afraid to move. The entire back wall of the house is gone. All she can see are a few sticks holding up the roof, letting in the sky. Thank you.
That was wonderful. A great juxtaposition to the last reading, and as Catherine said in the chat, the alliteration was just wonderful. So thank you so much for that. That was excellent. So next up we have Mackenzie Ozick, who is a graduate student at Central Connecticut State University. Her previously published work includes 3 CCSU-sponsored magazines, Terra Infirma and the Reentry magazine. Her piece, titled A Sinking Feeling.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I am an alum at CCSU, and it feels really right to have my first publication be something sponsored by the department that has given me so much. So thank you again. I'm going to read just a little bit of my essay. It is lyrical nonfiction, which is something that was really hard for me to write, but overall really rewarding. So here it is, A Sinking Feeling. The teenage swim instructor bellows from a distance. Approach the diving board, feet together. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Plant feet. Look out. Blue, blue, blue. The toxic smell of chlorine stings the inside of my nose. The sound of dozens of wet feet scuttling along monotonous, glossy blue ceramic radiates through my eardrums. I'm disgusted by this place. Small crescent moon fingernail indents decorate my sweaty palms. Frantic, I look left to right, the neon posters making my eyes squint. No running, lifeguard on duty at all times. A red rope linked with reflective buoys separates the shallow end from the deep end. The thin rope wavers loosely in the water as the other kids zoom around and beneath it. Nobody is going to save them if they begin to sink under the water. They're just another bobbing buoy in a sea of 20-odd 8-year-olds. Just keep your head above the water. Hold your nose. Don't open your eyes. Unlike them, maybe I just never took direction well. The court clerk commands, approach the bench, raise your right hand. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Plant feet, look out, narrow eyes, evil smirk. The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. My small, shaking voice escapes through bitten, chapped lips, and at first, I don't even recognize it as my own. It sounds pathetic, scared, nervous, like that of a little girl trapped at the deep end of the swimming pool. I start to sink into myself, sink down, down, down. I'm being pulled, memories like currents like cinder blocks tied to my ankles. My weak lungs let out a small sigh as the public defender pushes on. Frantic, I lose my voice. He continues to push. You're lying. Where's the proof? You're a seriously disturbed girl, aren't you? I'm a liar. I have no proof. I'm a seriously disturbed girl. The swim instructor continues to push on. Jump off, Mackenzie. Jump. I idle, inhale, squeeze shut my eyes, and jump. Immediate panic overtakes my every sense. My legs fail the rest of my body. My arms aren't fast enough for my brain. The surface is too far away. The water is too cold. My float's too deflated. Help. 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 Nothing.
Well, thank you for that. It's great for me as a soon-to-be graduating CCSU student to see an alumni, have this type of success and be published somewhere like this. And this is just an excellent, very powerful piece. And where did kind of the where did this come? What made you decide to write this piece, especially in the style that it was written in?
I wrote this 4 years ago, so 2016, in a class with Professor Mary Collins at CCSU. And it was just, I wanted to tell this story as I was experiencing it. And this was something that was happening to me in the moment, and I didn't really know how to process that trauma. And I took to writing because that's what I do. And I've looked at it for 4 years since I've written it, and I've edited and I've taken things out and I've put things in as I've processed them. And it's like it was very therapeutic.
Well, it's an excellent piece, and it's definitely one worth reading the rest of. So thank you very much for sharing it with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so next up we have Stephen Ostrowski, who is a fiction writer, poet, painter, and teacher. He is the author of 5 published chapbooks, 4 of poem, 1 of stories. And he and his son, Ben, are authors of a full-length collaboration called Penultimate Human Constellation. He teaches at Central Connecticut State University as well. And this is his poem titled Wayward in the Blood. When he comes up, I've actually had the privilege of having Professor Ostrowski as my teacher this semester, in my last semester, and he was a fiction teacher in that class, and I haven't really read too much of his poetry besides this, but that seems to be excellent. So I look forward to hearing him read it. How's it going? You're all set. We can see you. You all. Hello?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. All right. I didn't hear any of that. But anyway, I'm very happy to be here. And okay. Sorry. Thank you very much for this wonderful event. Being part of the faculty at Central Connecticut University has been a real honor and privilege for me, and it's been a great life. And having students like Connor and many of the people involved in this enterprise has also been just a real privilege. So I'm really grateful. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm a little disoriented by the fact that I couldn't hear anything, but as long as it's working, I'm going to read a poem called Wayward in the Blood for Tom Sullivan, who was a dear friend of mine in my teens and 20s and 30s and 40s and on and on and on. This is about our days of hitchhiking and moving around the country, trying to figure things out. Wayward in the Blood. Hey, Sol, we were brothers back then, geniuses at the reservoir, obliterated but not once drowned. Strung out and guitar-minded, we laughed where girls wouldn't go. We estranged Staten Island, blurred all its yellow lines. I grubbed for cigs and you grinned at my Ginsbergian poems. 17, you drove a Dodge Dart and I walked a lot. We spent brain cells in bars, wasted wishes on hot girls who found us hysterical, but not quite. So, one summer we thumbed and middle fingered our way across America, remember? But it was those black-eyed native dudes in Minnesota who got a piece of historical revenge when they took our money and didn't come back with the goods. We tried to fish Hemingway out of the big two-hearted river, but Papa fought us like a son of a bitch. So we waded in without poles, just to feel the clean copper cool of a river that didn't ooze with Jersey oil. West, we ascended into rocky space like grimy seraphim. We fell asleep on switchbacks. We were skinny as tree-lined pines. Our songs had no radio. Our hair was dirt long, but shampooed by the sexy fingertips of the sun. Way up on Long's Peak, we reflected weird in a pair of mountain girls' azure eyes. We grinned a hey and watched their beauty descend, giggling from the summit. Their loss, we laughed, haha, their loss. And we headed down, headed home, thin-souled and undefiled yet again. Headed east to figure ourselves into the rest of our lives. Yo, Sol, you think those years of lust and rebel and howl left some trace of wayward in our blood for good? I do. Now and then I wonder how you've been. I hope you're aging with a grace that's smoky and fierce. I don't imagine you ever gave in. Me, I'm still writing my gravel and dust poems. For who? I couldn't say. Doesn't matter. I know this for sure. I'm doing what I want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was excellent, and I know you can't hear me, so we appreciate it. Next up, we have Wendy Terry, who was born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, but now makes her home on the Connecticut shore. She is the author of With a Whisper, the poetry of Wendy Terry, and her piece is titled After the Protest.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I hit the invitation that came up on the screen.
Yep,
Can everybody hear me?
you're up.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, great. I felt bad, like I was cutting off the button that came. All right. So my name is Wendy Terry, and I'll be reading my poem After the Protest. And I'm reading from a copy from the Willoughby Wallace Memorial Library. So I'm giving a shout out to all the librarians and libraries that are carrying the collection, and especially to my director at my library who encouraged me to submit for this. So thank you guys. It's a blessing and an honor to be amongst these great writers. Oh, desolate, crushed the peace, a smack of astonishment. Still, after the protest, they listed you in the police blotter of the small town paper. I say cut it out with kitchen scissors. Tack the drying leaks, the jars of maple syrup tapped from your trees. Let it weather there. Let its edges curl. Let it ripen with all these things that have known dark earth and secret growth. When you're an old lady shucking off your garden boots, look at it. That little mellowed clipping. I bothered. Even if they bothered me right back. And that paper, yellow as wild honey, might hold a trace of sweetness yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Wendy. That was excellent.
Thank you.
I had a few audio issues on my end on that one, so I apologize. You were cutting in out a little bit for me, but I've been told that it was definitely all right everywhere else. So thank you very much for that. Next up, we have Sarah Darer-Littman, who is the critically acclaimed author of young adult novels, including Deepfake, Backlash, and Want to Go Private. She teaches in the MFA program at Western Connecticut State University and at the Yale Writers Workshop. Her piece is a poem titled Cutting My Heart Out with a Butter Knife. So hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi. So I was so honored to have this poem selected for the anthology because poetry is not my usual genre. So I'm going to be reading Cutting My Heart Out with a Butter Knife. Losing Dad to Alzheimer's is like having my heart cut out with a butter knife. The hurt is dull. This tag on the dad's room, one that doesn't belong to my mother. I look at the bag and then look at her, worrying about how she's feeling. I know it probably belongs to the lady in the room next door who kissed Dad on the mouth in front of my mother and me and my kids. That day, my daughter was furious about the transgression. How dare she? Grandpa's married to Grandma, she fumed, with a teenager's certainty of right and wrong. I had to explain that sometimes this happens when you live perpetually in the now because the disease has robbed you of your past and your future. But today, the kids aren't with us. It's just Dad, Mom, and me. I see my mother notices the bag too, and we exchange a glance that tells each other everything. Then Dad sees our faces, really sees them. He looks from the bag on the chair to me, then to my mother, and he has a rare moment of clarity. His eyes fill with tears, and he says to Mom and me, "You're my family." He can't stop crying because he's just realized that he's cheated on Mom. He's cheated on us, on our family. And even though he won't remember it a few hours from now, in this moment, he does. And you understand why they call it heartbreak. Because in this room, at this moment, everyone's heart is fractured.
Thank you, Wendy. That's very powerful on a difficult subject. So we appreciate you reading that for us. Next up, we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? Next up, we have Catherine Fitzpatrick, who is a recent graduate of Central Connecticut State University, pursuing an MFA at the University of Alabama. Her work appears in Out Magazine, Cleaver Magazine, Bodega Magazine, Gravel, and elsewhere. Her piece is a fiction story, and it's titled Welcome Aboard the Garrett Briggs Campaign. So how are you tonight, Catherine?
You know, just killing it, as ever.
Good to hear.
Yeah. I didn't print this out, so I'm just going to read it from my screen. It is both about bureaucracy and it's a murder mystery. So, you know, I'm not going to spoil it, but you know, you'll get it. Okay. Welcome aboard the Garrett Briggs Campaign. Please read and sign this form to acknowledge that everything we're going to review in this orientation tour is confidential officially. Your internship began at approximately 7:37 a.m. today and will end at 9:55 p.m. the day after the election. I must remind you that this job is completely unpaid. You will be required to work a minimum of 16 14-hour days per week. And there is no mileage reimbursement, no travel reimbursement, no healthcare reimbursement, no dry cleaning reimbursement. Yes, there's a dead body on the table used by mailing campaign volunteers. Yes, that is real blood soaking the forever stamps. Today, the volunteers will be cleaning those stamps and drying them in the windows facing the Aldi's parking lot. Though you are unpaid, you are not a volunteer. You are an intern, which entitles you to a handsome form letter of recommendation signed by the senator once you've completed your internship. You're entitled to order a latte for yourself on every other coffee run you make. That's approximately 18 coffee runs per week, which equals 9 lattes for you. So if you purchase the most expensive seasonal lattes at the largest size, which I don't suggest you do unless you want Denise to take it out of the budget for your welcome party and your going away party, which means oatmeal cookies instead of cupcakes, which means disappointed coworkers, which means vegetable oil in your gas tank. This means the Garrett Briggs campaign is unofficially paying you $5.95 per every other coffee run you make, which is $53.55 per week. The dead body was the last intern. Her name was Amber. I must also remind you that you were chosen from a highly competitive group of candidates, mostly out-of-work campaign managers and law school graduates with immense student loan debt. This does not make you special, but enjoy the moment. Yes, that is a purple mitten in the mouth of the intern, now dead body Amber. She was accepted from the internship program over more qualified candidates because Senator Briggs wanted more diversity on staff, and Amber was the only one who wore purple mittens to the interview. Anxiety, probably. This is my office. If the door is shut, don't knock. If the door is open, buzz me through the intercom first, wait 10 seconds, and if I don't answer, hang up and wait 30 minutes before trying again. Finding Amber's killer has jumped up to 3rd on my list of priorities behind your orientation and drafting 16 separate press releases detailing the senator's stance on 4 different topics on which he has not yet decided his stance. Yes, Amber's wearing a graphic t-shirt with a depiction of Naugatuck, Connecticut. After killing her, someone painted a red X on it, stuffed the mitten in her mouth, and wrote #BriggsBabe in black Sharpie on her right arm. Maybe it means something, but maybe not. Most things don't. Don't get lost in the details. This is your desk. This is your stapler. This is your computer. This is your pen holder. Pens are kept in the supply closet around the corner, as are computer paper, highlighters, tissues, tampons, mouthwash, boxes of staples, and so on. Please only take 1 pen at a time. When you take supplies, please note what you take on the supply chart on the wall to the right. Senator Briggs gives a breakdown of all his campaign expenses to the most valuable donors. Scrupulous questioners, retired. I don't think they killed Amber. They never would have let blood soak the forever stamps in such a way. Wasteful. This is your phone. Don't answer the phone if the call is coming through on lines 2 through 7. Line 1 you may answer, but only if it's a high-pitched ring. If it's a low-pitched ring, let Sandra answer. Low-pitched means the calls come from a wealthy home. The woman who wears sweater vests is Sandra. Sandra handles all relations with wealthy benefactors. She may not be much to look at, but she has a way on the phone. She works around the clock and takes only 6 20-minute naps per day. Do not stare directly into Sandra's eyes. Direct eye contact makes her freeze up for the better part of 24 hours. That's 24 hours of phone donations we lose. If you look directly into her eyes, a committee will determine how much revenue was lost, and that will come out of your paycheck, i.e., lattes. Sandra was frozen until approximately 3 minutes before your arrival. Amber was killed last night. Senator Briggs himself looked Sandra directly in the eye yesterday morning after a particularly stern staff meeting where the senator expressed frustration with the lack of negative ads being used against his opponents. He bought us plain donuts with no frosting or sprinkles in protest. He made Amber and Marcia pose with him for a series of Instagram photos. The caption read, "Young people are our future. Young women have a voice." Along those lines. Daryl shared the photos on Twitter and Facebook, but was not happy about it. You'll meet Daryl and Marcia in a minute. You've already met Amber, though she's not really herself today. A bit drained, I'd say. And I guess that's just where I'll cut it off. How do I end this? Oh my God.
Well, thank you for that. This is another one again. It's very funny and satirical and whatnot, and it's an excellent read and definitely worth finishing. So thank you for that, Catherine. Next up, we have Kieran Mazrur, who is a student at Yale University, where she's studying neuroscience under the pre-med track. On campus, she's involved with the Teeth Slam Poetry Group, as well as Yaleys for Pakistan, and her piece is a poem titled "Honoring Her Light."
Hi. Yes, that is my poem. Okay. Yeah, so I'm Kieran. I'm a sophomore at Yale. And this is my poem called Honoring Her Light. My grandmother stayed up with me once. In her flickering kitchen, we sat and peeled the skin off orange mangoes. Ripeness lingered as humidity does. And the bits of red skin stayed under my fingernails, even when she tried to scrub them off. Time made origami of her skin. Her palms were wrinkled paper crayons, and the mangoes would not go. Dawn waits giddy-eyed outside the window. The mosquitoes swarm deliriously in the mango air, puffing out of our house, enough sweetness to make the trees swelter and hunch over. The sun peeks out, set clean against the blood peach pit of the sky. When I notice her sunspots, I'm happy they're that, dark spots of sun against the pale watercolor of skin. Maybe she touches my cheekbone with her softened hands, her fingers like gentle architecture. Maybe she bends her spine like the trees to look in my eyes for the parts of her that life tore away. Maybe there are no maladies as sweet as dreaming of her mango perfume. My grandmother rests on the hind limbs of the earth, will blur into the wind when she's finally set loose, will run as far as she can go, the earth spinning below her feet as she dances the way she does. That's a poem.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you for sharing it with us, Kieran.
Yeah, of course.
That was great. So next up, we have another nonfiction essay. This is from Amy Cezone, who currently works as a literacy tutor. After 4 years of absence from pursuing her bachelor's in English, she went back to finish her 3 remaining classes, one of which was a creative writing course that reignited her excitement towards writing. And her essay is titled Angels and Demons. So take it away, Amy. Amy, can you hear me? Whenever you're ready, yeah.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, Sorry, there's like a little bit of delay on my end. But I just want to thank everyone that helped. Yep. Okay. I'm having technical issues. Are we good? Okay. So I just want to thank everyone that helped put this together. I truly feel like such an honor to be part of this. And I specifically want to thank Professor Borello because without his support, I would have never believed in myself enough to write this. So thank you. I'm going to read from the second half of it. I have a single memory of holding my dad's hand that didn't come from a captured moment behind a lens. It was the time my grandmother begged, then bribed my sister Liz and me to go visit my dad in prison. It was a couple years after my parents' divorce was finalized. I was around 13 or 14. I recall everything about the experience being cold. The metal seat I sat on cold, the air of the open building cold, the tall ceilings and metal beams above cold. The plastic covers of the fluorescent lights were filthy, giving off a dull light to an already depressing room. The smell of the room pungent with despair. My leg, covered by my skinny jeans, felt cold against the metal leg that went down the center of the round table. My dad sat across from the three of us. My grandmother planted directly between my sister and me. My dad reached out his cold, sweaty hand and loosely held my fingers. We didn't know the specifics of the charges against him, but we had enough information to assume it had something to do with a domestic dispute with his girlfriend at the time. I had never looked at my father's hand so closely.
Can you hold on for 1 second? Sorry, you have I think you have multiple tabs open, so we're hearing a bit of an echo. Is there more than one tab open with the literary festival?
Okay. I think I did it. Is that better?
That sounds better. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm just
no
gonna pick
problem.
up at the next section.
Okay, thank you.
Katie and I often take smoke rides along this reservoir in our hometown. We roll a joint as a way of connecting. The other day we were driving and we started comparing our crazies. She lit the piece with 3 clicks of her red lighter, inhaling deeply. I literally overthink everything he says, she said as she passed me the joint. I reached for it without looking away from the road. I twisted it a few times between my thumb and index finger, then lifted it to my lips to inhale. I held it there for a minute, then exhaled and coughed. Me too, I create the most ridiculous stories in my head about what he probably means or meant to say. I took another hit. She nodded and said, I make myself so anxiety-ridden, I don't even know how to calm myself down. I passed it back to her and looked at her briefly. Why do you think my phone is shattered? I threw it down the stairs the other night because I got so mad at him for not coming to see me because I felt alone. She took a longer puff. We continued looking aimlessly forward at the winding road ahead. I watched her turn her head towards the pitch black water. There's a small picture in a teal frame I keep in a junk drawer. My sister Liz had it buried in the bottom of a box she once brought back home from college. The snapshot captures a moment of time so entirely at odds with the memory of my father. It is of my father, Liz, and I doing facial masks together. It was taken at his girlfriend's house, the one he had cheated on my mom with after 18 years of marriage. The same woman who sent him to prison. I remember liking her because there were virtually no rules or supervision when we went to stay with them. I felt so guilty for my fondness towards the woman who had caused my mom to spend so many nights crying in the bathroom. This was the post-divorce, pre-incarceration period of time. We looked so happy in the photo. You wouldn't know from the picture the depths of our desire for healthy love from this man. My dad is shirtless, looking somewhat disoriented. Now I know he was heavily medicated on prescription drugs, the beginning stages of an addiction to legal narcotics among all the other substance abuse problems my dad has had throughout his lifetime. My sister Liz sits directly next to him in her silk pajamas with little pink and red hearts. I lean into my sister from the far right wearing my favorite purple striped tank top. I saved money for months in order to afford that shirt from Limited Too. All 3 of us have pieces of the translucent mask peeling from our faces. I sometimes wonder why Liz had thrown this picture into a box of junk. Is it because the look of our excitement being with Dad broke her heart? I can relate. The photo used to lay flat next to the drawer, but it hurt too much to look at. I make sure to keep it buried underneath hair clips and bobby pins and lipsticks and rings. I can't seem to throw it out either. I guess we all heal in our own time. After spending many months in therapy, many years separated from my childhood, I started to recognize that it wasn't my fault I had become so emotionally cold towards the world. My insecurities and lack of emotional control did not arise out of nowhere. I know the exact session it all started to click. I sat frustrated on my therapist's plushy purple couch, the type of furniture you would expect to see in a Victorian-style home. I felt especially alone and unloved in this moment, as if not a single person on this earth could fulfill this deep-rooted hole in my heart. I spoke slowly, letting the hiccups of hysterics work their way out in between words. I think the only way my sisters and I learned how to survive our childhood was by escaping and pretending to be elsewhere. She sat quietly in her chair a few feet across from me, nodding slowly. We didn't say much after that. The safety of her small office with slanted ceilings and subdued lighting reminded me of the days I would hide as a child. I wiped my tears with an already too-used tissue. She sat just as silently, making sure to meet my eyes every time they looked towards hers. We had been working towards this realization for months. About a year after my epiphany in therapy, Katie and I sat in our large rental Jeep during one of the final evenings on our trip to Hawaii. My sister Liz had planned, paid for, and created daily itineraries for our family trip to Oahu. She had surprised my mom with the invitation for Mother's Day and extended that to Katie, Liz's girlfriend Claire, and myself for a 9-day trip. It had been a dream of my mom's to see Hawaii, and here we were. The cotton candy skies gave hint of the early evening. We headed out on the open road away from our rental house towards the more populated areas of Upper Island. 5 minutes down the road, our heads turned towards the other with a nod. She pulled the vehicle to the side. We exited, climbed onto the sides, and popped off the two-piece top. I couldn't help but think, let's air out this stifling tension that has been slowly building these last couple days. The cool evening air will help clear it out. She pulled the vehicle back on the road and we continued. We didn't need to speak. Our silence said enough. We didn't know where we were headed, but we wanted to be out. Moments later, we started to hear and feel the patter of light rain. We quickly pulled back onto the side of the road and scrambled to get the top back on. We laughed uncontrollably as the pouring rains drenched our bodies from the sweet Hawaiian skies. The 2-lane roadway allowed for my seat on the passenger side to be the perfect outlook. I looked longingly at the endless fields of tall grass that stretched until they met the bottom of the mountains. In that moment, I wanted to go back and hold that sobbing little girl curled up in her childhood bed and whisper in her ear that it would all be okay. I pictured the three of us propelling ourselves to the top of Mount Kalala's peak to release an exhaustive scream at the top of our lungs, and then allow the water to wash away the weight of all our sorrows. The other day, I rolled over and stood up as a 28-year-old with the strength of a Charlie's Angel. I had gotten myself out of an abusive, oftentimes violent, and completely unstable relationship I had somehow found myself in. The cycle of domestic abuse had crept its way out of my memory and into my life. The reminder of that scared young child hysterically crying in her bed reappeared so many years later. How do you even begin to unbury and heal the pain evoked from such experiences? I suppose we let our spirits break just a little bit, and we use our powerful imaginations to raise us to the top of mountains and scream until it feels just a little better. Or we schedule our therapy appointments, and even when it is the absolute hardest thing we do, we show up and we continue to heal. Thank you.
Thank you. That was excellent. I'm glad we were able to fix that echo. So thank you for sharing that with us. That was great. So next up, we do have Joni DiMartino, who has published in literary journals and anthologies like Modern Haiku, Elementum, Calyx, and Circe's Lament, an anthology of wild women. She is the author of 2 collections of poetry, Licking the Spoon and Strange Girls. Her piece is a poem titled Moon on the Half Shell. Hi, Joni.
Hi. So I just want to thank Central Connecticut State University for having this anthology and this reading today. I do want to take a moment and dedicate my reading to Leslie McGrath, who we lost this year. She was a former faculty of CCSU, and she was very important to me. She was very supportive of my work, and she was a brilliant poet. And I think it's just, it's just a loss for the literary world, and especially for Connecticut. So this reading's for Leslie. Moon on a half shell. At 4 a.m., the cook jumped overboard. Having lain in the moon all night, he was out of his head. Logbook of the Charles W. Morgan, July 8th, 1846. Drowsy orb, the hue of dried sea salts, froths forth the opaque tides we sail upon. Each season passes unheeded on the sea. Our years brim with tooth and bone, polished to a sheen, like flecks of reflected light set in iridescent nebulae. Or a gloss of whale oil gleamed over crested currents when morning looms. A sextant, useless, I study this emerald celestial swirl hissing in the Arctic firmament, a luminous crackling glint above. Alone on deck, I stand under a sky shucked open into plums, indigos, mottled tar dark, yet white-capped and milk-spilled, distant, spherical, storytelling. Among constellations, I seek a whale's eye, a blowhole, starry water droplets from a fancied surfaced fluke. Abalone imaginings in my obad, this aurora, where the moon's a pearl, a stone, some slick oyster, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was wonderful imagery.
Thanks.
Leslie's been such a big supporter of everything we've done at the festival. She was on the board the first year we did it. We sat around a table and she was indispensable to our work. So we are going to try to get Beth Gibbs up here one more time. Nice job, Connor. Thank you. Remind everyone, I saw Melissa McCune out there in the chat. Melissa is going to be reading next Thursday, so thank you for coming to support you all. So if you have time next Thursday, come back and support the rest of the readers. And if we can't get Beth up tonight, we'll try to get her up next week or another time. And we're going to have a reader. One of our contributors is in Germany. There she is. It's working. Look at this. It's a Christmas miracle.
Okay, we're here.
Awesome. 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 All right. I said it once, but it needs to be said again. After years of working on media, higher education, and nonprofit organizations, Beth Gibbs is free-tired and pursuing passions like writing. Her next book, Enlighten Up, The 5 Layers of Self-Awareness, was released in October, and tonight she'll read from her short story, 1-800-555-MARY.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. And before I start, you know how publishing and production guidelines go, so the book will be out in January.
January, all right.
That's okay. Okay, here we go. 1-800-555-MARY. I picked up my cell phone to call Charlene, and right outside my window, there it was, smiling pink lips, pale blue eyes, and slim white hands folded in prayer. And above a golden halo were the words, Virgin Mary speaks to America today. And underneath the hands was a telephone number with the instructions. Call 1-800-555-MARY. I stopped dead in my tracks and laughed before I got mad. I spent at least 10 minutes with my hands on my hips and my eyes all squinty, trying to figure out what that billboard was doing in my neighborhood. I was used to the ones that sold cool cigarettes and Boone's Farm wine, and I wondered how much Madison Avenue planned to charge for salvation. She looked like the models on all those other billboards, size 10, thin, pretty, in a washed-out Eurocentric kind of way. I snorted. What a Looney Tunes world. The Black Madonna is front and center in many Polish churches. Now here is a white Madonna on top of the Nation of Islam's mattress factory. Go figure. Now, maybe I wouldn't have been so irreverent if she looked more like the women I knew. But that blonde hair, those blue eyes, they were a bit much to swallow in a neighborhood where most folks ranged from cafe au lait brown to pitch purple black, with soft dark eyes and lots of tutu solid flesh. Tutu solid flesh. That's Shakespeare. It's from Hamlet. I always liked it, because I've been trying to melt my too solid flesh for too many years. I mean, I called 1-800-94-JENNY. I tried Nutrisystem, Weight Watchers, and Overeaters Anonymous. I did the grapefruit plan, the protein plan, and the low fat plan. I sweated to the oldies, I took pills, and I even paid a 3-month visit to Mama Ruth's Fat Farm in the Caribbean. For New York Minute, I thought about having my stomach stapled, but I dumped that idea and gave up trying. It was the breakdown that did me in. I sat around the apartment watching TV and talking to Charlene whenever I could get a word in edgewise about her advice about what I should be doing with my life. Charlene is my best friend, you see, and we used to talk on the phone during the Oprah Winfrey Show, swapping opinions about her diets, hair, clothes, and guests. Dolores and Charlene, 2 sister friends passing the time. The last time we talked, I could tell she was all kinds of upset with me. Dee, she said, you have got to pull yourself together. I'm all out of advice. I don't know how else to help you, and you know I want to. We've been ride or die friends since the 3rd grade, and if you don't dig yourself out of this hole, you leave me no choice but to figure out how to hold an intervention on your behind. Now, the breakdown? Yeah, that. Well, I went off one day in the cafeteria at work. I cussed, shook, and howled something awful. Next thing you know, I'm in a straitjacket at the local loony bin popping Valium like aspirin. The shrink they sent me to didn't have a clue. So as soon as I stopped raving and sank into depression, they gave me a prescription for antidepressants and let me go. They didn't know what was wrong. I did. I felt unloved. I mean, sure, Charlene and my family loved me, but their love was the safe love that families and friends are supposed to have for one another. I was missing that bone deep, totally accepting love, the kind that wraps around your life and bursts your heart. And it wasn't about men. Many had declared their love for my soft eyes, my ample curves, my southern fried chicken and sweet potato pie. I felt their arms and I heard their words, but I never believed they were really meant for me. Anyways, my depression and I holed up in my apartment. And when I needed to talk, I called Charlene. And when I needed food, I called Stop and Shop. My job had given me a 6-week medical leave to get myself together and go back to work. With 3 weeks to go, I was nowhere near ready and really bummed out. But giving up my job as a systems analyst and not working at all was scary. But going back to work and facing everybody made my insides quake. And I knew I couldn't make it on welfare. Too humiliating. I felt like Mount St. Helens before her big bang. And that Mary billboard was just another irritant. And that irritant had started to watch me.
All right, Beth, and we can tease it, Beth. She picks up the phone, doesn't she?
She picks up the phone.
Yeah, and so if you want to see what happens when you call 1-800-555-MARY, you got to read the rest of the story.
That's right.
Well, Beth, I appreciate you hanging with us here, and we worked it out.
Yes, thank heaven.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you in the
No
book.
problem.
It was fun to work with you this summer.
Okay.
Terrific. All right, folks, we are setting new records here for our time, but it's been terrific. Remember, these are all archived, so if you want to have someone hear you read your poem, give us about 48 hours, and it'll be on our website, and they're going to be archived. They're all there. Watch Wally Lamb. He was devastating and hilarious. So this was great fun. Again, we're going to do it again next week. I know a lot of contributors are out there still. We're getting you the books. Again, if you teach a class, you want to use the book, we'll have our study guide out in January, and then we really want to work with the community in the state to get the book read. That's the important thing, and get your work read. And we may be in touch with some of you if we get requests for some of the writers to visit schools or Skype with some students. If you're interested, those opportunities might come, and we'll see what shakes out. We're just kind of starting the process, and once we're all out on the street again with our masks on or off, we'll have a lot more opportunities. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank Cristiano Torres, who's been working overtime behind the scenes, and to Connor, and to all the editors who worked hard on the book. And lastly, you all saying you love the book so much, we have to thank the designer, Jillian Gallner. I kind of kid that she is our in-house designer at the festival. She's terrific. She does all of our artwork. So thank you again to Jillian, wherever you are in Connecticut. So we'll see you next week. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night and enjoy the book. It's really, to quote Forrest Gump, it is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, and it's all pretty tasty. So good night, everybody. Thank you very much.